There are two methods that can be used to solve a system of equations: the elimination method and the substitution method. And I'm going to show you how to use both of these methods right now. Here we have a system of equations that consists of two linear equations, and it has two variables, x and y, both of which we need to find. Let's first use the elimination method. In this method, we eliminate either x or y by adding or subtracting the equations. In the above equation, we have minus y, and in the below equation, we have plus y. If we add these two terms, they will cancel each other out, eliminating the variable y, and that's what we want to happen. So let's go for the addition and add these two equations. First, we draw this addition underline below the equations and put this plus sign here. And when we add two equations, what we do is we add the like terms together. That means we add x terms to x terms and y terms to y terms and plain number terms to plain number terms. We never add or subtract an x term from a y term. So in this pair of equations, 3x plus x equals 4x and minus y plus y equals 0, which we can simply ignore. And on this side, 5 plus 3 is 8. We have successfully eliminated y, and now we have a single variable equation, 4x equals 8. On this side, we have 4 times x, but we want to get rid of this 4, so that we can isolate x and find its value alone. To get rid of times 4, we do the opposite of multiplication and divide both sides of the equation by 4. 4x divided by 4 is x, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. And it turns out x equals 2. Now we can plug this 2 into any of the original equations to find y. I'll go for this equation because it is simpler. Let's change this x to 2. We have 2 plus y equals 3. Now let's subtract 2 from both sides. On the left hand side, plus 2 and minus 2 cancel out. And on the right hand side, 3 minus 2 is 1. And what we get is y equals 1. Now to verify my result, I can go to this first equation, change x to 2 and change y to 1 to see if things work out correctly. 3 times 2 is 6 and 6 minus 1 is 5. We end up with 5 equals 5, a valid proposition, and it tells us that our solution is correct. Now that we have seen the elimination method, it is time to move on to the substitution method. And in the substitution method, what we want to do is to isolate either x or y, which means we want to leave x or y alone on one side of the equation. And we could use any of these two equations to do that. But I prefer this one because this equation is obviously easier to deal with. I want this y to be left alone. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides of this equation. As you see, I put this extra minus x on the left hand side of the equation, and I've also put the same minus x on the right hand side. So this is one of the basic rules when solving equations. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do the same to the other side, be it addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, or whatever. Remember this very well. Now, on this side of the equation, x minus x cancels out, and y is left alone, which is exactly what we want. And on this side, 3 minus x stays as 3 minus x. We cannot subtract these two because 3 is an integer term, while x is an algebraic term. And that's another super important rule you must never forget. You can never add or subtract plain numbers from algebraic terms like x or y. And so we have found y equals 3 minus x. Now wherever we see a y, we can substitute it with 3 minus x. And that's where the name substitution comes from. And we're going to use this first equation for the substitution because we have already used the second equation. So remember, in the substitution method, once you have used one of the equations to isolate one of the variables, you cannot go back to that equation. You need to use the other equation to substitute the variable. So let's replicate the equation down here. And we are going to substitute this y with 3 minus x. And I had to put these brackets because we have a minus here. And it applies separately to everything that constitutes the y variable. So to remove the brackets, this 3 has to become minus 3. And this minus x becomes plus x. Because minus times minus is plus. And the other terms will stay as they are. And watch very carefully now. We take this minus 3 and move it to the other side of the equation and it becomes plus 3. So that's another rule to remember. When something goes to the other side of the equation, it changes its sign. So plus becomes minus and minus becomes plus. Going back to our equation, 5 plus 3 is 8. And on the other side, 3x plus 1x is 4x. We have found that 4x equals 8. Now to isolate x, we'll do what we did before and we'll divide both sides by 4. Because whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do exactly the same to the other side. 4x divided by 4 is x and 8 divided by 4 is 2. And there we are. We found that x is 2. And that means wherever we see an x, we can replace it with 2. And that's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna replace this x with 2. And 3 minus 2 is 1. We used the substitution method to find the values of both x and y. And again, we can plug those values into one of these equations to see if things work out correctly. And they do. We've got 5 equals 5, a valid preposition that verifies our solution. So there we are. We've learned how to use the elimination and substitution methods to solve a system of linear equations with 2 variables. If you want to learn more on this topic, make sure you check out my other videos. And by the way, don't forget to like this video and make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss our future videos. Have a good day and see you soon.